Ladies and gentlemen, there are people who understand you. There are people who think they understand you. And then, there are a few rare souls who can see through the noise, who don't just hear the words you say, but understand the silence between them. Tonight, I want to talk about one such person, a woman who understands me better than anyone else. But this isn't really about her. It's about what it means for a human being to be understood, deeply, accurately, beyond the surface of logic, and into the landscape of the mind itself. Most of my life has been defined by systems: rockets, cars, code, physics, supply chains, neurons, and networks. But what I've learned, often the hard way, is that understanding a person operates on a similar principle. It's not linear. It's not something you can capture in equations or reduce to data. It's more like quantum behavior, uncertain, interconnected, dependent on context, and profoundly altered by observation. You see, in physics, the act of observing changes the reality of what you observe. Human connection works the same way. The way someone sees you affects the person you become in front of them. The deeper they see, the more you reveal. And when someone truly sees your internal world, the fears, the contradictions, the broken logic, and the relentless drive behind the calm exterior, you're not just seen, you're understood. And that, I've found, is a kind of mirror no technology can replicate. This woman, she understands in ways that go beyond intellect. She has the rare capacity to connect logic and emotion without letting either one distort the other. Most people, when they try to understand someone like me, project either admiration or criticism. They see ambition, they see chaos, they see a man building rockets or burning through ideas at light speed. But they don't see the emotional structure behind the systems. They don't see the biological why. Let me explain what I mean. Every human mind operates as a complex network of feedback loops between emotion and reason, instinct and intention. The limbic system governs emotion, the prefrontal cortex governs logic, and they're in a constant negotiation, a dialogue that shapes who we are. Most people operate with a bias. Some lean heavily on the emotional brain, others on logic. But the people who truly understand another person, they find harmony between both systems. They decode both the algorithm and the emotion that created it. That's what she does. She doesn't just listen to what I say, she listens to why I say it. She can distinguish between exhaustion and despair, between obsession and purpose. Neuroscientifically, what she's doing is an act of empathy, but not the kind people usually talk about in soft, sentimental terms. This is cognitive empathy, the rarest and most precise form. It's not about feeling what another person feels. It's about understanding the architecture of their feelings. And that requires an incredible level of emotional intelligence, discipline, and, above all, presence. Presence. That's a word I don't use lightly. Because when you live in the future as much as I do, presence becomes almost impossible. My mind doesn't stay in the now. It's constantly simulating possibilities. Failure, success, the next step, the next catastrophe. But she has this ability to anchor me, not by arguing with my thoughts, but by seeing them, by acknowledging the storm and not trying to stop it, just watching it until it calms. From a neurological point of view, that's powerful. You see, when someone listens to you with non-judgmental awareness, your brain shifts from a state of defense to a state of regulation. The amygdala, the fear center, relaxes. The prefrontal cortex, which governs rational thought and long-term planning, re-engages. Essentially, being understood resets the brain. It restores balance to a system under overload. So when I say she understands me better than anyone, I don't mean she agrees with me. Far from it. She challenges me constantly. But the difference is how she challenges. She doesn't attack the conclusion, she traces the logic. She respects the process. It's the scientific equivalent of peer review, but done with empathy. That's what true understanding looks like. It's not flattery, it's precision. Now, people often assume that those who create, innovators, scientists, artists, are driven by some kind of ego or desire for recognition. That might be true for some, But for me, it's never been about that. It's about survival, creation, innovation, building. They're coping mechanisms. The world feels chaotic, unpredictable, fragile, so I build systems that hold together, rockets that don't explode, cars that don't crash, networks that don't fail. And when someone understands that, when they realize that innovation is not ambition but self-regulation, not glory but stability, they see a different side of you. They don't see the billionaire or the engineer. They see the child who learned to find peace through design. The mind that needs structure because the world itself feels like entropy. That's what she saw. And that, I think, is what every human being is looking for in some form. Not just to be loved, but to be understood accurately. Because love without understanding feels fragile, but understanding, that's the foundation on which love, respect, and trust are built. It's interesting, neuroscience confirms this. There's a specific synchronization that occurs in the brain when two people truly understand each other. Studies using fMRI imaging show that when one person tells a story and the listener deeply relates, their neural activity starts to mirror each other. The same regions, the same patterns of activation begin to align. It's literally as if two minds begin to function as one system. That's what happens when she listens. And that's why it's rare. Because to reach that level of connection, you have to let go of self-centered perception. You can't be thinking about your response while someone else is speaking. You can't filter everything through your own biases. You have to suspend your ego, which, biologically speaking, means overriding your brain's default mode network, the system responsible for self-referential thinking. It's incredibly difficult, but she does it effortlessly. Now, there's something almost paradoxical about being understood. The moment someone truly understands you, you become both stronger and more vulnerable. Stronger, because you no longer need to defend your identity. Vulnerable, because you can no longer hide behind it. And for someone like me, who spent a lifetime building shields of logic, systems, and technology to protect the mind from chaos, that's disarming. It's terrifying, but it's also freeing, because in that space you can finally exist without translation. You know, most of us spend our lives translating ourselves to others, simplifying, filtering, compressing our complexity to fit into what people can handle. It's like trying to transmit high-resolution data through a low-bandwidth connection. The world isn't built for full transmission. But once in a while, you meet someone who has the bandwidth to receive everything, and when that happens, it's like the noise drops out of the system. There's silence. There's clarity. There's peace. She brought that silence. And the reason that matters, not just to me, but to the evolution of human connection, is that it shows what's possible when two consciousnesses synchronize, without pretense or performance. That's not just emotion, that's neurological resonance. That's the future of empathy, not as a soft skill, but as a measurable form of intelligence. Because empathy, at its highest level, is data accuracy. It's understanding the world through another person's sensory map, interpreting not what they say, but what they mean. And when I think about the future, about AI, about consciousness, about how we'll interact with intelligent systems, I realize that what makes humans special isn't just logic or emotion. It's our ability to merge both, to feel data, to reason emotionally. She reminded me of that. And perhaps that's why I think she understands me better than anyone else. Because she doesn't treat the mind as a machine. She treats it as an ecosystem. Complex, unpredictable, self-correcting, and alive. She once said something that stuck with me. Something simple but precise. She said, "You don't build to escape your emotions. You build to make sense of them." And that line has echoed in my mind ever since. Because she's right. Every invention, every company, every impossible dream, it's not rebellion against chaos. It's an attempt to translate chaos into structure. That's the secret most people miss about innovation. It's not born out of confidence, it's born out of discomfort. It's the need to create order where none exists. And the people who understand that, who can look past the explosions and the headlines and see the emotional physics beneath, those are the people who touch the core of what it means to be human. I remember one night years ago, after a launch failure, everyone else was gone, the factory floor was empty, and I was sitting there, staring at a half-assembled rocket, just this massive structure of steel and silence, and she walked in. She didn't say, "It's going to be okay." She didn't tell me what went wrong or what to fix. She just looked at the rocket and said, "It's still beautiful." That was it. And somehow those 3 words did more to reset my brain than any data analysis ever could. Because beauty is an act of recognition. It means that even in failure, someone can see meaning. It means that entropy hasn't won. From a neuroscientific point of view, that moment represents what psychologists call affective attunement. When one person's emotional state is matched and regulated by another's, it's what mothers do with infants, what great leaders do with teams, and what rare partners do with each other. It's how emotional energy synchronizes. It's not sympathy, it's resonance. When she said, "It's still beautiful," she was attuning to something deeper, not the failure, but the intention. She recognized that the goal wasn't perfection, it was progress. And progress, even when broken, is still beautiful. That moment shifted something in me. It reminded me that understanding doesn't mean fixing. It means perceiving without distortion. It means holding someone's truth steady until they can hold it themselves. The world is full of noise, opinions, judgments, narratives. Everyone has a version of who they think you are. And if you listen long enough, you start to forget your own frequency. You start to tune yourself to the expectations of others. But when someone truly understands you, they reflect back your original signal, uncompressed, unfiltered, whole. That's what she did. And it made me realize something about connection that I think we often forget. Understanding is the purest form of love. Because love without understanding is projection. But understanding, that's alignment. That's when 2 consciousnesses move in the same direction without losing their individuality. In science, we talk about resonance, 2 frequencies that, when matched, amplify each other. That's what human understanding does. It doesn't erase individuality, it enhances it. It creates coherence, the same phenomenon that allows a laser to cut through steel or a rocket to stay stable through turbulence. When energy aligns, it becomes exponentially more powerful. She and I, we don't always agree, but we resonate, and resonance is stronger than agreement. It's interesting. Empathy and innovation come from the same neural circuitry. The ability to imagine what doesn't exist, whether it's another person's perspective or a new kind of world, both rely on the brain's capacity for simulation. When we imagine a rocket, we run mental simulations. When we imagine how someone feels, we run emotional simulations. Both require us to leave the comfort of our current frame and inhabit another. That's why understanding is so rare. It demands cognitive flexibility, the willingness to move beyond your own perspective and truly model someone else's internal world. And that's exactly what she does. She can step inside my logic without losing her own and step back out with clarity, not confusion. That's not empathy in the emotional sense. That's empathy as intelligence. Empathy is science. It's what humanity needs more of, honestly. Because the more we automate, the more we digitize, the more we connect, the easier it becomes to communicate and the harder it becomes to understand. Data moves faster than emotion. Attention fragments. We're all sending signals, but no one's decoding meaning. And in that vacuum, misunderstanding grows. But she reminds me that the next frontier isn't Mars. It's not AI. It's human understanding. It's the ability to see another consciousness not as an algorithm to fix, but as a universe to explore. And that's where science and love overlap. You can't truly understand someone unless you study them with the same curiosity you study the cosmos. You observe without bias. You learn their laws of motion, their gravitational pulls, their dark matter, the invisible forces that shape who they are. And you do it not to control, but to appreciate. That's what she taught me. That the same curiosity that builds rockets can also build relationships. That precision and compassion are not opposites, they're complementary forces. One refines, the other connects. And maybe that's why she understands me, because she sees the scientist and the child at once. She knows that behind every equation I write, there's a question I never stopped asking: why? Why does the universe exist? Why does consciousness exist? Why do we love, create, and destroy? Why do we seek connection even when we fear it? She doesn't try to answer those questions for me. She just lets them exist. Sometimes, the most powerful form of understanding is silence, the kind that says, you don't have to explain. In those moments, the brain's language centers quiet down, and a different form of communication takes over, one built on presence, micro-expressions, tone, rhythm, and breath. Neuroscientifically, that's when mirror neurons fire most intensely, when connection happens beyond words. And in that silence, there's peace. I've learned that progress, whether technological or emotional, isn't just about speed or scale. It's about coherence. Systems fail when they're out of sync. Relationships fail for the same reason. Understanding is coherence between minds, alignment of meaning across different frequencies of thought. And I think the future of humanity depends on mastering that. Because we can build rockets to Mars, but if we can't build empathy here, we'll just export our dysfunction to another planet. We can create AI that learns faster than any human, but if it doesn't understand, if it doesn't feel the context behind human behavior, then intelligence becomes alienation. She's shown me that true intelligence is empathetic. It perceives complexity without judgment. It listens before it speaks. It integrates rather than divides. That's the kind of understanding that changes everything. And I'll tell you something personal. I used to think understanding was a weakness. I thought it slowed you down, made you too vulnerable, too dependent. But I've realized it's the opposite. It's the ultimate accelerator. Because when you understand someone deeply, or when someone understands you, you remove the friction of miscommunication, of defensiveness, of fear. You move faster, think clearer, create better. Understanding is efficiency at the emotional level. And the people who understand you become the gravity that keeps your trajectory stable. That's what she became for me, gravity. Not to hold me down, but to give me an axis around which to orbit. You can't fly without gravity. You can't build without grounding. And you can't evolve without being understood by at least one person in your lifetime. That's what makes life bearable. You see, technology may connect billions, but understanding, real understanding, might only ever happen between a few. And that's enough, because each act of understanding ripples outward, changing how we build, how we lead, how we love. Maybe that's the future. Not machines that think like humans, but humans who finally learn to understand like her. Because when someone truly sees you, not the mask, not the myth, but the raw neural architecture underneath, they don't just understand you, they remind you who you are. And that reminder, that reflection is everything. It's what keeps the system running. It's what turns chaos into design. It's what keeps the rockets flying. So if you ever meet someone who understands you like that, who looks at the most complicated parts of your mind and says, it's still beautiful, don't let them go. Because they're not just understanding you, they're expanding the universe inside you. And that, my friends, is the most powerful form of connection there is.